Hi, I'm Martin Rudow. I'm presently Vice President of Sovereign, our local vintage racing group. And I've got a 50-year history, gosh, it's almost 60 now, of racing in the Northwest that I'd like to share with you. Today I'm just going to speak really on the 50s and 60s, which you could say, and I think you can make an argument, was really the golden era of road racing, probably in the country and certainly in the Northwest. We had the best drivers in the country coming here for races. We had some of the most amazing cars coming here for races. It all started up in British Columbia in 1950 and 51, very small time racing. Some blown MGs, a lot of stock MGs, Morris Minors, some really weird specials that they put together from British Columbia, racing on airport courses. There weren't purpose-built courses like we have here today, like out in Pacific Raceways. They raced on airport courses, and there were a lot of airport courses that were not really being used, that had been expanded for World War II, and then they were kind of in disuse or just occasional private plane use. So we started racing on all those, and I got involved in this with my dad in 1956 when he got an ex-Jaguar XK120, and we started going to races, and I became a fanatic on the whole subject of going to races, reading about races locally and nationally, and meeting all the drivers I could. And of course, I wanted nothing as much to be a driver myself, but considering my eventual hand-eye coordination, probably just as well I got involved in other things. But anyway, in those days, we had a local guy here in Tacoma, Tom Karsten, who's like the major domo. He's kind of running the show pretty much, and also had some fantastic cars. He had a Cadillac-powered Allard, a British car, and Gainley-looking car, that his car won the biggest race in the West Coast, Pebble Beach, a couple of times. And then he, Tom, driving his own, another Cad Allard, kind of ruled the roost in the Northwest for a few years. Then we had guys like Pete Lovely, another Tacoma native actually, terrific driver, internationally known, raced Formula One in Europe, and a guy named Jerry Grant, who also raced internationally. Both started here in the 50s on these airport road courses, and there were some famous cars. Pete Lovely had a Porsche-powered Cooper Streamliner that they called the Pooper, Porsche Cooper, that was won national championships and was a top car in the Northwest for years. And racing in this area really changed to Shelton in the late 50s. Shelton Airport held years of fabulous racing. People came from all over the West Coast to race there in various races. Then purpose-built race courses came on, Portland and Westwood in British Columbia and Pacific Raceways. So in the 60s, the focus really changed to these road courses, as well as some airport courses, but the big races were at these road courses. And this is when we really had these really top drivers coming in: Mark Donahue, Parnelli Jones, Mario Andretti, Peter Revson, Graham Hill, Pedro Rodriguez. To people who are fans of racing in those areas, they know their names, they're magic. They're the top names of racing, period, in the whole world. They all came to race here at races like the U.S. Road Racing Championship, or the Pacific Coast Grand Prix, or the Trans Am Series, Formula 5000. All these were at Pacific Raceways in the mid to late 60s, and they all drew crowds of like 15 to 25,000 people, and these terrific fields, and called national attention on racing. Up in Canada, they had their own national series, a player-specific series, and the Pepsi Pro. Really good racing, top drivers from Canada, and we came up from the States to race as well. And in Portland, they had the Rose Cup, which was a huge race. And this, eventually the Tacoma Grand Prix came along here, but that was a lot of years after, and a really different kind of racing. This was mainly sports racers, closed wheel cars. Well, like the Tacoma Grand Prix was Formula Atlantic open wheel cars. Things went along great in the Northwest racing until the late 60s, when pretty much nationwide the interest in road racing just started to die real rapidly. And these series that I mentioned came to an end and were picked up again, but they just never caught the same excitement. And several years ago, I started kind of bemoaning the fact that these great years of my youth, the 50s and 60s racing, there was just nothing about them anywhere. You'd go out to our historic race. Every 4th of July, there's a big historic race at Pacific Raceways. And occasionally, I'd be out there and I'd run across somebody I had known in those days, or somebody would say, hey, this is Martin Rudow, his dad used to race and you raced. And I started talking to these people and realized there were a lot of photos and stories and things around. So I started gathering together and published a couple of books about those days, which were real well received. And I had so much fun doing it that now I love to give talks and presentations and help share my enthusiasm and my memories of what were really the greatest days of racing in the Northwest.